That was scary. They literally stopped funding loans. Everyone's scared. They don't know what to do, and it's paused. As for me, as you can see, I thought I was going to fold 100%. I mean, I lost sleep for 10, 12, 14 days. Lost weight, stressed out, either getting yelled at or talked down to. For the first time in history, I'm seeing rates for like 1.99%. So with this, our phones were ringing off the hook. And I'm touching on this because right now I see a problem. And the trend that I'm seeing is 5 years ago, all these businesses got money. So did my customers, right? And for years, first year, second year, third year, everybody's just flowing. Year after year since like 2022, I would say, it's been going down. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Facts of Life podcast. It'll be hosted by me, John Doan. Today is episode number 14, and today's episode, we're going to go ahead and call it Life Support, the rise and fall of the COVID hustle. When COVID hit in 2020, the world changed. And today we're going to talk about how it affected businesses in general. So as far as the U.S. goes, in March 2020, most states followed the federal stay-at-home order, which meant kids had to, be homeschooled. All my kids were on computers trying to make that happen. It was super hard and difficult. And then as far as employees go, everyone except for our essential heroes on the front line had to work from home. And so, to avoid a financial crisis, the federal government quickly got together with the Small Business Administration Department, known as the SBA, and they quickly came out with relief programs that would help businesses because obviously if businesses couldn't pay their employees payroll and employees couldn't pay their bills, we would be in a financial, it would be chaos. The implementation of this relief was to help businesses, and then the businesses would then use that money not to grow, not to do anything else, but simply just to continue making payroll for all their employees so that they could continue making all their bills and feed their kids and their families so the world would go around during the time period, everybody trying to figure out, what to do next. One of the things that first came out was the PPP loan. It was the Payroll Protection Program loan. Now, this loan was given out and it was exactly what it was meant to do. It was a paycheck protection program. Whatever your, payroll was per month, there was a formula that was used to make sure that you would have some relief to continue paying your employees. Other programs came out. There was the EIDL grant. It was an economic impact, disaster loan or grant program that was given out. Same SBA, just different guidelines. If you wanted to do that, those were more for larger businesses. The PPP loans were only given out to companies with 500 or fewer employees. So, with that said, with every episode in our podcast, the acronym L.I.F.E stands for something different on every single show and episode. So today, the L in our show will be for loan or legacy. What I mean by that is if you are a business owner and that was in need of relief and had to keep your doors open, you had to survive, had to keep your employees paid so that they could feed their families and pay bills to keep our financial impact at a minimal, as a nation. If you got that, the question is, what did you do with it? Was it just a loan that you took out to stay alive, to survive? Or did you take this money to build it into a legacy? I can talk about my own personal experience. I remember the news coming out around February 2020. We were humming. Business was really good. We probably had a really good streak in the mortgage and real estate business. We had an inventory problem. There was not enough homes to buy. So there was more buyers than homes that were for sale. And at the same time, with a combination of rates being like almost the lows that it had been in many, many years and decades. At the end of 2019, I want to say interest rates were sitting around 4.5 to the high 4% range, 4% range, really low. That made homes really affordable. So a lot of buyers were out there looking to buy. And that's why there was a lot of bidding going on. And so anyways, business was good. When I heard the news in February, didn't really understand I don't think anybody really understood the impact. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on with the CDC and the health organizations, right? So who knew? Well, wow. I don't think I'll ever forget that day. Not only did we, close our offices, had to quickly urgently. It was actually like an emergency. We'd have to figure out how am I going to get everybody to work at home. We had PCs, monitors, and quickly we had to just supply everyone with laptops so they could bring their laptops home. And, we have, we're a banking institution lender, so it's got to be secured, passwords, personal information. There's a lot to think about there, a lot of security and a lot of logistics to think about in order to get everyone to work from home. What does that do to the mortgage industry? It was not good. They literally stopped funding loans, right? This is top of the food chain, no more money. Everyone's scared. They don't know what to do, and it's paused. And so with our large size and very successful pipeline that we had at the time, just to give you a better vision or feeling of what we were going through, you must have had at least 10 to 12 transactions, right? Where people were buying homes. They already, we were at the very tail end. They already signed loan docs. We literally were just waiting to close or fund their transactions. And when this order came out, it just overnight, basically no loans were closing. No one was funding. It was an immediate impact and it just paused. Boy, that was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen with our loans that we were working on. That's a lot of money right there that we were expecting or working on. I'm not even talking about loans that we had in the pipeline for the next month or for future loans, right? In our business, you have, what you're working on now and then your pipeline for the future that you're working on, as far as business goes. And all of that was just in question. Didn't know. Got very nervous. I'm not easily stressed, but that stressed the bejesus out of me. And so, it was official later that week where they're like, all your loans are dead. We're not moving forward. You can no longer it's void, null and void, right? They don't even exist. My goodness, people were crying. People were upset. People were frustrated. People were scared. And, I have a whole team here. And at the time we had a pretty big team and it just wasn't me and my loans, but I spent a good, 10 days. And as a transparent business owner and a professional, we're not going to sit here and just hide and not talk to people. No, to the contrary, I was proactively calling everybody. Me personally as the owner, even if it wasn't a transaction I was working on, but I was just reaching out to everybody. I was calling out to apologize and just comforting everybody and letting them know that, what was going on, what to expect. And honestly, the expectation part was the toughest because no one knew what to expect. We didn't know. We didn't even know what was going to happen the next day. And so it was very hard to comfort. It was a really tough time in my career sitting here talking to, 30, 40 people over a span of 10, days or so, or even a little bit longer and just either getting yelled at or talked down to or blamed for, some people took the news and understood, but for the majority, they did not. Right. So after we got through that part, my biggest concern was, what's going to happen? If I can't close these loans, in our business, a lot of it is, a bonus or commission based for, transactions that you close. A real estate agent would not get paid if it doesn't close. So think about all those transactions that we did not close. All those real estate agents were just all the work that they've done. We're just going to go to zero all of a sudden. It was a big, big problem. And my concern came up was how they going to pay their bills. If they don't close these transactions, how are my employees going to pay their bills? How will they get paid? How will they pay their mortgages, their rent, their car loans, their insurance? How are they going to feed their kids? Right? So, luckily for me, we were, as I explained before, for, quite some time, we were doing pretty well. And I had built up, a pretty decent cushion, as you should always as a business owner for not a pandemic, I guess, because pandemics don't come around very often, but just for the ebb and flow or the up and downs, businesses in general, things that are out of your control. It was a good amount, but how long would it last? There's a bunch of unknowns. Well, shortly after that, the federal government, like I said, got together with the Department of the SBA and they came out with PPP loans, right? And these were relief loans to help pay for payroll to keep everybody surviving. So of course I applied for it immediately. Like the minute I found out about it, I applied, submitted my application, and got all my paperwork in as soon as possible. And really it was for two main reasons, right? First, it was to keep my business open, obviously. And second, to help keep paying for my employees so that we could weather this storm, that we didn't know what was, coming towards us because, we've never been through anything like this. Well, thank goodness I got approved. And before you know it, I got a bank deposit. And with that bank deposit that I got from the PPP, combining it with my cash cushion, made me feel a lot better. Now I had funds going for, at least a year. So I'm like, okay, here's my base, expenses, payroll to keep everyone surviving, right? And the businesses, expenses paid, my family surviving, so if we had 12 months in the bank minimum, hey, that's good. Right? That's a good enough amount of time to figure things out. Well, with that said, 3-4 months later, thank goodness, maybe it was like 2 months later after March, I would not say that it was around May, boom, interest rates tank. They drop for the, first time in history. I'm seeing rates for like 1.99%, as low as that if you're doing like 10-year loans, which no one did, but they were available. But the common rates are like in the 3% range. So with this, our phones were ringing off the hook. People wanted to refinance their properties. Money's flowing again, right? Rates drop. Money's flowing from the PPP, EIDL. I mean, there's $200 billion circulating, just for this year, which is a lot of money to circulate. So you use that and a combination of people who had like 5-6% rates. And now they're getting like 3% rates. So a lot of people are calling in, taking some cash out. And then, to help survive for themselves. And then also at the same time, reducing their overall payment. So they were saving money and they were taking cash out. And this also helps circulate the economy because people need money to spend. When they go spend that money at businesses, the businesses make money in order to create more jobs or to profit and things like that, so on and so forth. That is our business cycle here in America. It must go on. And with the money that I had, and now that we actually have business going on and things are looking more bright, I sat down, I said, okay, thank goodness I had a cushion, but what am I going to do with this money, right? Am I going to, go out, buy a new car, upgrade my house, go buy a bunch of jewelry? No, I did not do any of that. I sat down and strategized and I said, this is the time to take advantage. I am going to strengthen our technology, modernize my business with tech, right? Better security, things that would help with our process and our operations. I spent a lot on refining marketing strategies, techniques, marketing, just a lot of different things that businesses need to excel. And when we had the first downtime, we had to reduce our staff, obviously. I mean, we couldn't afford to keep everybody, even though we had some cushion. There just wasn't enough business for like a 3-4 month term. So everybody in our industry started reducing staff, right? Just no choice. And even those people who got, let go or laid off got these big unemployment checks based on the grants and the COVID Relief Act as well. So we had to reduce our staff, but when things got better and busier, I reinvested that money back in and created more jobs again, right? So I created more jobs, and that was the best decision because with every single bit of time, every effort, and the money that we spent on software, tech, development, security, and just hiring and creating more jobs, it was really the beginning of where we're at today, and for me, right? The L in Life, Loaner Legacy, it's what continued building our legacy here at, Equinox Home Financing. With that said, that's my own personal story. Unfortunately, not everyone had the same intentions as I did. Many took those grants and the PPP relief, funds and did recirculate and did create more jobs and did reinvest and revitalize their businesses like you should have, right? Just to keep it alive, to keep your employees paid so that, everything is cycling the way that it should. But this is where a lot of the fraudsters, criminals, the bad guys came out. And so I guess this one's a little bit closed because I'm Vietnamese, and in our community, there's always chatter, things like that. But the first story I heard was, a Vietnamese guy named Peter Nguyen out of New York. And he owned all these nail salons. I think it was like 15 nail salons out of New York, just spread everywhere. And, this case was where Peter, along with two other family members, I guess there was like three of them, all the headlines were like $13 million of money, fraudulently taken by three nail salon owners. It was something like that, right? And how it works for the PPP is it was a basic formula. The government sat down quickly overnight and basically said, what do we need to give in order to buy some time so that, money's still flowing? 2.5. So whatever your payroll was as a business in 2019, you would add up the whole year of 19, average it out over 12 months. Whatever that number was, you multiply it by 2.5 times. 2.5 meaning 2.5 months of payroll. So we were getting assistance to ensure that we had 2.5 months of payroll readily available to help survive and to keep things going while the government and the CDC and the WHO was trying to figure out what to do with the whole COVID pandemic. Well, Peter Nguyen claimed that had a payroll with his 15 nail salons of about $5 million per month. So do the math. If you multiply that by 2.5 months, it's about $13 million, right? So he applied for $13 million across all his salons and he got approved. And for his case, it was a little, different reading around, but he got a deposit of $7.8 million to start with. And so what did he do with that? This guy went out, bought a Lamborghini and a Ferrari. One was not enough. He had to buy 2 supercars, buying Rolexes and jewelry. And so he was living lavishly, buying luxurious items, just living the life, right? Off this grant money that the government was giving out. That really gets to me as like, can you imagine what he could have done with the $7.8 million that he received? Let's do some basic math here, right? I kind of know these numbers pretty well because nail salons are kind of dominated by the Vietnamese people. It takes about $150K to $200,000 to build a nail salon, and you would be able to create about 15 jobs per location. Do the math. 7.8 million. The guy could have opened up like 40 nail salons. Is that realistic? I don't know. It's not that easy to open up 40 locations, but this is a hypothetical. Let's say he opened up 40 salons and each salon had 15 employees. That's 600 new jobs that the guy could have created, but he didn't. So this guy did it all for personal gain, right? Yeah, I couldn't stop laughing. I just reread this, but it was the New York Post talking about how they were going through court and he was going through prosecution. You know how they finally, it was just a funny bit of evidence when he was going through trial. But the day that he found out there was a warrant for his arrest, he jumped on Google and was going crazy Googling PPP fraud, sentencing, all this stuff about, just basically admitting that that's what he did, right? And when they take your computers and they take your documents, your bank accounts, and they review everything, right, for fraud, that's where they found this information. And unfortunately, he got what he deserved. So was that worth it? Why didn't the guy just use that money to build his legacy, right? That was a lot of money. 13 million approved, 7.8 million that he actually received. Now he's not going to see any of it, be an old man by the time the guy comes out. There's other cases though, right? That was a big one, 13 million. That wasn't very common. You would hear a lot of 5 millions, 3 millions, 2 millions, right? How about Maurice Fain, AKA Arkansas Mo, who was a reality TV star on Love and Hip Hop in Atlanta. I remember watching this because the Rolex that he bought. So he falsified that he had a trucking business and he received 3.7 million in funds. And this guy went out and bought an $85,000 Rolex. No one needs an $85,000 Rolex. Even if you come up with $3 million, guys, that is just, I don't know. That bothers me. You shouldn't be wearing an $85,000 watch if you came up on 3.7 mil. That's funny to me. So that kind of leads me to our next point of our episode, the I in life. Is it identity or illusion? Looking back at my own personal experience and example and the fraudster examples that I just talked about, makes me think, were business owners really business people or was it just an illusion, right? My story. And for me, I purely used the money to grow. I wanted to grow, create a cushion, a safety net, and I wanted to create jobs. And not only to grow, but my main goal was that if an emergency or a pandemic or a downfall, temporary or linked, whatever, right? Like if something should ever happen again, that I had cushion, just like I did this last time. Like, thank goodness that I had money. I want to make sure we're even safer this time. So I wanted to make sure that we were 100% safe and that my employees felt secure. And I'm touching on this because right now I see a problem. I see a big problem. Here we are 5 years post-COVID from the pandemic. And the trend that I'm seeing is 5 years ago, during pandemic, all these businesses got money. So did my customers, right? And for years, first year, second year, third year, everybody's just flowing. They're making money. There's revenue. Some are growing, some are not. Some are like reinvesting, whatever it may be. But, I got to see what their businesses generate in revenue. And unfortunately, year after year since like 2022, I would say it's been going down. So decreasing revenue is more apparent. Not saying that it's all, right? I mean, there's a lot of stable businesses or some that are growing, but I'm seeing more that are going down in revenue. So what does that mean? Were people just lucky 5 years ago? Was business better 5 years ago when the pandemic happened? Was COVID the main reason for businesses that were generating business and income and revenue? And now that it's died off, people are not doing so well? Like, is that a possibility? I think that if people really identified as real entrepreneurs or business, pure business-minded business owners, because of $200 billion that was circulating, they didn't do anything different to succeed. It just naturally came their way, because if there's all this money circulating and you have a business and whatever product or service you are providing, it's just going to come to you naturally. It's just going to get spread out. What did you do with that money is my question. Well, perhaps those that are not doing so well now, post 5 years after COVID, perhaps it was an illusion of being a good business owner, and that you're skillful or experienced, that you got business skills instead of really identifying as a good entrepreneur. Now let's talk about the next part of our episode, the F in life. And today I'm going to talk about flex or fold. So if you got money from the SBA or the EIDL, or you got a grant, whatever, right? Like, or, just the money that you got from that, what'd you do with it? Did you get the money and, you tried to do everything that you could, but you still couldn't make it work, so your business folded? As for me, as you can see, I thought I was going to fold 100%. I mean, I lost sleep for, 10, 12, 14 days, lost weight, stressed out. It was pretty bad, but, I thought I was going to fold. Instead, what I did was reinvest the money that I did, right? Because at the end of the day, the only people that I truly need to flex to is my family, first and foremost. It's who matters to me most. And, next it goes my business, right? I need to flex to my staff, my employees, my partners, my vendors, right? Because I need to show everybody that, I need to be able to flex, that we are stable, that we got a good business model, that we can survive and we can weather anything, and that's important to me. It's about stability. They want to know that they can feed their kids, and they want to know, everybody wants security when they're working at a workplace or at a company. So with that said, if you are a business owner and you went through everything that I'm talking about here, I'd love some comments or feedback. Did you flex? Did you fold? Let me know. The last part of our show here is the E in life, which is for entitled or involved. It makes me think really hard when I see businesses that are not producing as much or not doing as well. Is it entitlement? Meaning, did the money that they receive and the influx in revenue that they produce naturally, like I said, because of just pure circulation of funds going around our whole nation, did it make people feel entitled? Meaning, oh, hey, I'm a great business owner. I'm so successful. When they didn't do shit differently, right? They didn't do anything. And now they feel entitled. See, that's not good. That could be very damaging, just that false illusion of success or skills, or that you are a good entrepreneur, when perhaps it was trickery. And now that's made you feel entitled. It's just so tough. And feeling like that will only take you down. Are you entitled if you went through this? Or did you evolve? Did you take this opportunity, of good business and, just the pure fact of experiencing a downfall or pandemic to strategize to make sure that your business is safe and that you're prepared next time something like this should ever happen again? Did you evolve? Look, COVID changed the game, but it didn't change the truth, right? Real businesses who planned, strategized, and reinvested into their businesses, survived even when the money dried up, right? Because they're still doing well. Real entrepreneurs adapt, we evolve, we build things that last, or at least you have the intention in mind to do just that. And if you have that intention, that's what you're working on, chipping away at it will get you there. So that said, if you're listening and this is just like relevant to you, you went through these things, or you know exactly what I'm talking about. My question is, did you build something? Was it legacy? Did you have an illusion? Was it entitlement that got to you? And if you did change it up and you did well, what did you build? What did you do with that? Or were you just collecting money as it naturally came to you, right? It's a wake-up call, guys. It's really something to think about. I do think this is really what we're seeing today. It's like we were up and people are going down and they're not ready to deal with this. So with that said, we really wanted to share, right? Like, I'm not judging. I'm not flexing either, talking about like, oh, I know everything. I know what I'm doing. No, I just try to make the best decisions possible. And I went with my gut. And, here we are. We're doing pretty well. We're in growth mode. Things are well. And, luckily I'm here to be able to tell you the stories and my experiences of what I'm going through. And if you're an entrepreneur or business and went through this, I would love to hear from you. Comment. But if you're not and you're looking to get into business, use this as a lesson. Take what you can from it in order to put your plan together for your own business. That said, that brings us to the end of our podcast. Thank you for joining us on the Facts of Life podcast. I'm your host, John Doan. Please subscribe, comment, or share my link with anybody else who may use this advice. And thank you so much. Have a great day.